Sun is shining. It's going to be a glorious morning at the RHS Hampton Court Flower Show as Jimmy Osmond joins the Hairy Bikers in Kitchen Garden Live at 11. But now on BBC One, it's live to Wiltshire for Crimewatch Roadshow.
Good morning. We're live once again, helping police to get criminals off the streets. Coming up today, the serial sex offender, terrifying women in their homes.
The eyes were so frightening that he seemed to have got enjoyment that he'd seen me.
The 26-year-old aspiring model, murdered on his way home from a night out. New CCTV shows the last moments before he was attacked. And the paramedics under pressure, dealing with calls from time wasters.
No, you can't have a beer, mate. If you've got time to have a beer, you've got time to wait for a taxi.
And at the other end of the scale, ambulance crews could be called to major incidents like this. I'll be finding out how medical teams train for all eventualities.
We're live and waiting for your calls. You're watching Crimewatch Roadshow. Hello and welcome to Crimewatch Roadshow. We're coming to you live each morning, highlighting everyday crime which could affect any one of us. Also today, a new appeal to find the man who raped a 15-year-old schoolgirl in Dorset. After more than 3 decades, his victim bravely speaks out.
His last words to me is, "I've ruined your life now, haven't I?" And I just said, "Yes, you have."
And the crafty scam tricking people into selling their cars for a knockdown price. Today, the team have moved on to the National Ambulance Resilience Unit near Salisbury. What's going on there, Tina?
Yes, Rav, this is a really impressive place. All kinds of rescue scenarios happen here with paramedics from all over the UK who come here to train for complex and hazardous major incidents. Later, I'll be seeing how they cope with this, a train full of chemicals that's crashed into a car on this railway line.
Thanks, Tina. But first, to Dorset, where police want to trace the man responsible for a series of terrifying crimes against lone women.
Dorset is one of Britain's most treasured tourism destinations. The county is renowned for its historic villages and picturesque beaches. But police believe the area is also home to a serial sex offender. He's escaped detection for the last 5 years. Officers are determined to catch him. In the early hours of a summer morning, Sally had a terrifying encounter with the man.
I got up for work as normal at 5 a.m. I went to the kitchen, had a cup of tea, sat down. And I had the telly on. I live on my own, so I have the telly on for company.
But outside her house, the man was watching her.
Initially, I could just see a movement from where I was sitting, and I thought it was my friend looking for a lift. I noticed a male walking by.
Sally went to the window, and to her horror, she saw the man was performing an indecent act.
His face was covered, and he was staring straight at me. It's just the eyes. The eyes were so frightening that he seemed to have got enjoyment that he'd seen me. I got the impression that he was smiling. It was extremely frightening.
Sally called the police, but the man was never traced. It's believed the same man is responsible for dozens of similar incidents in the Dorchester area. 2 other victims have agreed to speak out. Their words are spoken by actors.
I was sat watching TV and heard a knocking on the wall. So I got up and looked out the window, and there was a chap in a dark hoodie I couldn't see his face. He was just stood there, with his trousers around his waist.
When I went downstairs, it was then that I heard the tapping on the front door. And as I opened the front door, that's when he was there. His head was completely covered, so I couldn't see his face at all.
We have 29 reported incidents in total. 16 of them share the same method. When he has committed these offences, he's always had his head and face covered.
Police say the man often strikes in the early hours of the morning, carefully watching homes before targeting lone women.
At that time of the morning when it was dark, you could see that there was a downstairs light on in our house, which apparently, according to the police, is what this guy was looking for. The police dog led them to several windows, so they think he'd been going around looking in windows that were lit up, looking for lone females.
This serial sex offender has left his victims feeling unsafe in their own homes.
I was very frightened to stay on my own. I considered moving.
I felt angry and violated. It's horrible to think that this chap is still walking around. Is he still out there watching me?
He clearly gets some sort of kick out of this, and this man needs to be caught because he's just frightening. So please, if there's anything, no matter how small, the police are interested, just give them a ring.
DC Gerald Marchant is with me now. A lot of women have been scared and upset by these incidents.
Yes, it is terrifying for the victims, and quite rightly so. The victims have been left shaken and afraid in their own homes.
Can you tell us where and when these incidents took place?
Yes, the incidents have happened between February 2012 and November 2016. We've had 29 offences reported in total, 16 of them sharing identifiable methods, and remaining 13 offences are considered as part of the series itself.
We can see a map now. Can you talk us through the exact locations?
Yes, the areas being the Fordington area of Dorchester. Precisely there is an estate locally known as Fordington Fields in Dorchester. There are nearby villages to Dorchester, namely Charminster, Charlton Down and Puddletown.
So what do we know about the offender?
He is described as white male, aged between 30s to 40s. He is about 5'6" to 5'9" tall. He is medium to stocky build, and he has been wearing what is described as dark coloured clothing, in particular a dark coloured hooded top, but always having his face covered with either a balaclava or a scarf or a similar item to that.
OK, and you are appealing for anyone with information to contact us. If you can help, please get in touch. The numbers are on the screen now. Rav.
Thanks, Tina. Next, do you recognise any of today's criminals caught on CCTV? Be warned, these are pretty serious.
It's the early hours of the morning, but the party's still going in this Leeds bar. Keep your eyes on the man wearing a black T-shirt with a distinctive white logo. Everyone else seems to be having a good time. But out of nowhere, he smacks the bloke next to him full force in the face and lashes out at another partygoer with a flurry of punches, only stopping when he's dragged away. The first victim needed emergency surgery on a badly broken nose. Police need your help to catch this thug. Who is he? It's the early hours of the morning, and although you can't see much at this trampoline park in Derby now, things are about to get a lot clearer. The equipment goes up in flames after the fire starter spreads accelerant everywhere. What he wasn't counting on was setting himself alight. No one was injured except the arsonist, but the fire caused extensive damage to the equipment and the building. The image isn't clear, but if you know who did this, then you know what to do.
If you can identify anyone, we need to hear from you now. Remember, calls are free on 08000 468 999. You can also text us on 63399. Text CW space and then your message. Text will be charged at your standard message rate. Or send us an email, that's the address there, cwr@bbc.co.uk. And you can also speak to Crime Stoppers anonymously. They're on 0800 555 111.
Now, this may look like a really nasty road accident, but it's actually an advanced training exercise for experienced paramedics. Now, in a moment, we'll see them in action as they rescue the driver and passenger from this car. But first, we spent a shift with a newly qualified paramedic in Bristol to see what they come up against on a more typical day.
The South Western Ambulance Service is one of the largest in the UK, dealing with up to 3,000 999 calls every day. 25-year-old James Kiss is getting ready for a 12-hour night shift in the centre of Bristol.
I've been working as a newly qualified paramedic since September last year. I moved here from working down in Devon. I wanted to get a feel for a big city, possibly a faster-paced environment.
On an average shift, James deals with around 10 emergency calls and must be ready to handle any situation.
You can go to your first job in the morning and that could be a cardiac arrest or a patient that's had quite a severe stroke. And from that you could then go to somebody who's having a mental health crisis. So you really never know. There's a lady who has fallen over and her husband just phoned us because I think he's unable to get her up off the floor. We've come to see your wife, I believe. I'll go and have a chat.
We get you up, we get you to the loo, and we get you everything sorted. Don't worry.
Silly old sod, aren't I?
Take a few breaths for me, all right? But your blood pressure is dangerously low.
The woman is confused, so James calls her daughter to find out her medical history.
Trying to make a decision on what I think needs to be done in terms of Mum, because Mum's sort of woken up on the floor and can't really remember anything.
Concerned by her condition, James decides to take her into hospital for further checks.
You have to do a bit of detective work and try and make sure that you're truly understanding the situation before you make your decision. You genuinely are doing something different every day. It can be your life-threatening emergencies one day, and the next day it can be relatively mundane jobs.
Many of those jobs are linked to alcohol. And James's next call is one of them.
So, somebody has been chased out of a property and thinks that they have now broken their wrist. So you don't know exactly how you've injured your wrist. So there's no history of anything hitting your wrist at all. So we'll nip you up the road. All right, mate, to get it x-rayed.
What, he wants to open a can before he comes up?
No, you can't have a beer, mate. You know, if you've got time to have a beer, you've got time to wait for a taxi.
We can take you up there. That's okay. Take it steady.
Faced with a choice between a drink and a lift to hospital, the man chooses beer. Paramedics spend many hours each week dealing with unnecessary calls, and that extra pressure makes it harder to respond to those in genuine need.
We were potentially going to be taking someone into hospital with a wrist injury, and we were going to be unable to respond to a cardiac arrest, which is what we're responding to now. So what we're going to now is a genuine medical emergency, whereas what we've just been to is actually a minor injury. That's just not what we're here for.
Well, there's no time being wasted here today. Parsab Khan from Naru is here to tell me what's going on. First of all, Parsab, can you explain what Naru actually is?
Naru stands for National Ambulance Resilience Unit. It's based over 2 departments. We have an Equipment, Policies and Procedures department, and we also have the Training and Education Centre, which we're here today at.
What sort of emergencies do you train people
We
for
train
here?
ambulance staff in a number of different skill sets. So command training we do training of the hazardous area response team. We also train clinicians and non-clinicians here.
This is a nasty accident. What are your team dealing with on this occasion?
On this occasion, this scenario is set up where a vehicle has left the road and collided with the scaffolding. What they do in a real scenario that would be here with our fire service college and other emergency partners, they'd make the area safe, and then our staff, the paramedics, would enter the vehicle, look to treat the patient, stabilise them, and then get them out of the vehicle as soon as they can.
We should say this is a mock-up, though.
Absolutely.
It's a tricky situation to be working in because they're working in a very confined space.
Yeah. Working in any vehicle can be difficult. In this scenario, we've intentionally made it a little bit more difficult where there's the risk of the scaffolding around them as well. There's obviously broken glass, so they have to be spatially aware to see what's going on. They'll enter the vehicle, and like I said, the idea is to get them out as soon as they can.
So what you teach them here could literally mean the difference between someone surviving a major incident like this and not making it.
Yes, we make the training here as realistic as possible. It gives those that are attending, the delegates, to understand that there is time constraints when retrieving a patient from a vehicle. The idea is to get them in working rail time, and then we can look back at it later to help with the training.
Well, thankfully, the child passenger is being rescued, but this could take a lot longer.
Yes, it would. Like I said, in reality, it would be done with our colleagues. So the fire service would also attend, the police would attend, the fire service would look to make the vehicle safer, so stabilising it. The structure would also need to be looked at, maybe sure that before the paramedics enter.
And here, you deal with a whole range of potential disasters and emergency scenarios.
Yes, the training here is designed to train paramedics and non-clinicians to be able to deal with the large trauma. So it could be mass casualties, plane crashes, train crashes. Unfortunately, some of the incidents we had with the terrorist incidents as well. It's how to deal with those and give the best for the patients.
Well, this is a job well done. And later, we'll be seeing one of those challenging scenarios, a major train accident.
Should be interesting. Thank you, Tina. OK, still to come this morning. Can you help police catch the thug who assaulted a pensioner on his own doorstep?
Thought he was a vicious man to do this unprovoked attack like this. He was saying all the time, you know I've got a knife, you think I wouldn't use it. I never experienced a man so vicious as that before.
And just like fingerprints, our footprints are unique. We'll find out how this shoe scanner is helping to trip up criminals. Now, less than 2 weeks ago, 26-year-old James Brindley had everything to live for. He had a loving family, a girlfriend, a job. He'd even been offered work as a model. But tragically, on his way home from a night out with friends, he was fatally wounded in a seemingly random attack. West Midlands Police have launched a major investigation into his murder, and Detective Chief Inspector Chris Mallett is the senior investigating officer in the case. Thank you for coming in, Chris. It's a heartbreaking case. James's family and friends are obviously desperate for answers. So what do we know about the night he was murdered?
Well, it was Friday the 23rd of June, and James had gone out into Aldridge Town Centre about 10:30 with his friends, and they went to a couple of bars in Anchor Road before making their way up into the High Street. And at a point where they kind of came to Rookery Lane, James and his friends parted company. His friends went on into Walsall to carry their night out. James was on the phone to his girlfriend, and he headed down towards the end of the High Street. OK, we can have a look at a map now. Let's just talk me through this here. OK. So where did he go? So he came from Anchor Road up into High Street, and he walked towards the end of the High Street. And when he reached the end point of the High Street, he walked around a path along the top of the Croft Park towards Little Aston Road, and that's where we believe he was attacked.
Yeah, we can see that clearly there. And we've got some CCTV now, which you're releasing this morning. Talk us through what you can see here. OK,
here we've got James at the top of the image walking along the end of the High Street, and he'll soon walk by this little wall along the top of the Croft Park. He'll disappear into the darkness towards Little Aston Road for about 2 minutes. During that time, we believe he was confronted by 2 males, one of which has stabbed him with one single stab to the chest, which has pierced his heart. We then see him come back onto the camera screen and collapse in front of the in front of the shop.
OK, and I understand some passers-by desperately tried to help him.
They did indeed. 4 lads who'd been to a local prom came down and came to his aid, tried to give him first aid, and they spoke to his girlfriend on the phone and confirmed what had happened to him. She phoned his parents and they turned up at the scene whilst the paramedics were there. And unfortunately, whilst working home for an hour or so, he died in his parents' arm on the high street.
Horrific, isn't it?
It is horrendous, yeah.
OK, are there any clues as to a possible motive here?
At this point in time, there's nothing strikingly obvious as to why this has happened, and we're obviously looking at all possible options. What we do know is that within a short period of time, within a 2-minute period of time, he's met his attackers and received the fatal wound to his chest.
And how can people help this investigation then?
We're looking for 2 males who were seen in the Croft Park area and also in the Whetstone Lane area. We're asking for your viewers and members of the public to call us if they've seen them at all between the hours of 11 and quarter to midnight on that night. They're described as 2 males, one darker skinned than the other, aged in their mid-teens, late teens to mid-20s, and they are running off down the Whetstone Lane area.
Now, this is a close-knit community, isn't it? It's the sort of thing that people may well have spoken about, and if they have, you want to hear from them.
Absolutely. You know, there's a tight-knit area, Aldridge. Everybody knows everybody, and we're really appealing for anyone to come forward to let us know anything that they may have seen or heard about it.
OK, thank you very much for coming in today. Please do call or text us if you know anything. Must tell you there's also a Crime Stoppers reward of £10,000 for information leading to a conviction. Police desperately need your help, as do James's family. Tina.
Thanks, Rav. Now, this is another training area, and this is a mock-up of a train accident. Jackie King is from Nauru. Jackie, talk me through what we are seeing here in front of us.
As you can see, a train's hit a vehicle. We've said for this scenario that the vehicle's got chemicals on board. They've leaked out, and we've got people on the train who have been injured by both the crash and the chemicals.
The paramedics here are getting their protective suits on, which looks pretty tricky, to be fair.
It is. It takes probably around 5 minutes to get these suits on. It's very hot. Their visibility and their mobility will be reduced whilst wearing these suits.
How do they protect them?
These are chemical protective suits, so they have a gas-tight zip, and this one needs doing up, so if you'd like to have a go at doing it, it's quite a tight zip.
Right. That's really difficult to do. The people watching at home, it's harder than it looks.
It's gas-tight, so it needs to be stiff.
OK, I think that's done up.
So, and then if we just put the Velcro over, and then he can be checked before he goes onto the train.
So is that the final stage?
That's the final stage for this, yeah. You can see we've got various stages of dress.
So in this situation where chemicals are involved, how does that affect what the paramedics will be trying to do?
The paramedics' priority is going to be to get the patient out of that chemical environment. So they will do what they need in life-saving interventions, stop bleeding, help breathing, and then they'll get the patients off and out of that environment as soon as they can.
Now, how will they be feeling as they're about to go in if this was a real emergency situation?
Paramedics are always focused and committed to doing the best for their patients, no matter what the scenario. Obviously, the staff here have got the added issues of the hazard of the chemical on the train and trying to do their day job but while wearing protective equipment. OK,
Jackie, thank you very much. And in a few minutes, we'll be going on the train with the paramedics as they rescue the casualties on board.
Next, to the West Midlands and a particularly frightening attack on a pensioner in his own home.
Birmingham in the 1970s. A city with a thriving Irish community.
I lived 46 years here in Birmingham, and I first started on the buses in 1971.
Bernard Boyle moved to Birmingham from his native Northern Ireland, making a new life for himself in the city's Spark Hill area. Now he calls these streets his home.
They're good, caring neighbours. If they find anything wrong, they'll come to your aid and that.
The 71-year-old lives alone, and a few months ago, he needed his neighbours' help like never before. It was a cold February night. Bernard had left something in his car, so ventured out to get it.
I went out, I forgot a paper in the car. The car was just parked outside the house, and I wasn't thinking of much, and I got the paper of the car and was coming in again.
Caught on CCTV, a man was lurking in the street. As Bernard walked back towards his house, the man made his move.
I didn't see nobody at all around it. I was amazed at how he got so close up to behind me.
The attacker pushed Bernard back into his house and demanded money.
He said, "Get in there." He lashed out and hit me a lot of blows to the head and thing. Hurt the heart in my face a bit.
The punches kept coming as the attacker knocked a terrified Bernard to the ground.
But he was saying all the time, "Where's the money?" Or, "Where's the money? You know I've got a knife. You think I wouldn't use it?"
Bernard tried desperately to fend him off. As the man rifled through his pockets, Bernard cried out for help.
My neighbour next door heard me.
Realising he was about to be rumbled, the man threw one last punch, then ran off, empty-handed, leaving an injured Bernard on the floor.
I had a swollen face. My head was sore for a couple of days afterwards, but thankfully it come all right again. My neighbour was a great benefit to me. If it's not for my neighbour, I don't know what would be his next step. So he done me a good turn.
We believe this to be an opportunistic crime. We think the offender was probably passing and has spotted the victim entering his home and has took a chance. It must have been very frightening for our victim, who is 71 years old, to have been approached on his own doorstep, where he should be safe, pushed into his own home and then assaulted.
Although shaken, Bernard is determined not to let the incident affect him.
Thought he was a vicious man to do this unprovoked attack like this. I never experienced a man so vicious as that before. It was a scary experience. It really shook me up for a bit, you know. I lost confidence, but as time goes on, I'll get better again, I suppose.
Well, police really want to trace the man responsible for that attack on Bernard. It's believed he could live in the Spark Hill area of Birmingham, and he's described as 6 foot tall, Asian man with a rounded face and a large build. If you recognise him, you know what to do. Now, I've got to tell you, we understand the phones are not working properly at the moment, so do please text or email us. We'll let you know when they are back up and running. Right, some more people that the police would like to catch up with now, starting with Anthony Hughes, although you may know him as Colin Haricki or John Johnson. He was jailed for 5 years in 2015 for blackmail and kidnap and released on licence, but has failed to stick to his conditions and is now wanted back inside. Hughes has a Liverpudlian accent and links to Cheshire. He has tattoos of the words Mum and Dad on both hands and a large prayer sign which covers his whole back. This here is Matthew Gain, although he also calls himself Bradley. Detectives investigating an attack on a man and woman in their home in Nuneaton think he may have vital information and would like to speak to him. Gain is 36 and has links to Bedworth in Warwickshire and to Coventry. Next today is Jean-Marc Mondelez, although you may know him as Pascal Mondelez. The Frenchman is wanted for questioning in connection to a card fraud in which the victim lost £500,000. He's 25 and now has links to the Lambeth, Westminster and Southwark areas of London. And finally for today, this is Inis Mesgina, although he also calls himself Anis Bayen. The 32-year-old was charged with regarding a glassing incident at a party in Ladbroke Grove in London. He was due to appear in court but has failed to turn up. Originally from Ethiopia, he now has links to East and to West London. So if you know where any of these faces are, make sure you get in touch using the numbers on screen. Tina.
Now, a really sneaky scam to get people to sell their cars for less than they are worth. PC Steve Boston from Dorset Police is with me, and you're investigating, a number of incidents where criminals pose as typical car buyers and then try to trick the owners into selling them on the cheap. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
You've got CCTV of this happening in Poole, the scam in action. Talk us through how it works.
OK, so what you can see in this video is 3 males who've contacted the buyer. Generally, the buyers are advertising on Gumtree or eBay. Arranged a viewing of the car. It's usually always 3 males that appear. And while they're viewing the car, they've distracted the owner. On this occasion, they've poured ink into the coolant bottle to make it appear that water has leaked into the coolant fluid. And at another time that we can't see on the camera, they've put an oil-filled rag into the exhaust pipe so that the vehicle produces a large amount of smoke when it's test-driven. making it look like it's a major fault.
Yeah, and it's so sneaky.
Yeah, that's right. And obviously, once they've made it look like there's a major fault, they then offer the seller a greatly reduced price for the car. And we believe if the scam is successful, they then take the car away, remove the rag, the ink passes through the coolant system, and then they sell it for a higher value.
In this case, it didn't work, though.
It didn't, no, thankfully.
Yeah, and you want people to get in touch if they recognise these three men.
That's right. We don't believe this is the only gang operating this scam, but we're particularly after the identity of these three males. I've exhausted all investigative leads at the moment trying to find these three, which is why we've brought it to Crimewatch.
And we can take another look at those males again. What do you know about them?
We know they're three males with London accents. We know they're active in this scam. I was contacted by another victim late last week from Ferndown in Dorset, who had these three males turn up, view a car, and they then recognise their faces from the appeal that we've done with the Bournemouth Echo.
OK, thanks, Steve. Well,
no problem at all.
You have been warned. Get in touch if you know who these men are. Rav.
Yeah, definitely a scam to watch out for. Now, a harrowing appeal to solve a crime which happened more than 3 decades ago in Dorset. Dawn Clark was still a schoolgirl when she was attacked as she made her way home from a friend's house. She bravely agreed to waive her anonymity, hoping to tell her story will help catch the man responsible.
I enjoyed my life. I loved everything that I was doing, and I was happy, and just everything stopped. He ruined my life.
35 years ago, Dawn Clark was enjoying life as a teenager. But one evening in May 1982, the 15-year-old was stopped by a stranger on her way home from a friend's house.
And as I was walking towards the main road, a man was approaching me. To look at him, he was dressed to go out.
Excuse me, do you know where the next bus is, please?
I didn't fear for my life when he was walking towards me. He asked me a simple question about the yellow bus and what time it would come.
The bus, do you
so
want
I
us to
said, normally 9:30.
The yellow bus is about 9:30. OK, you're welcome.
And I carried on walking. He walked past me. Before I knew it, he had his arm around my neck and had a knife in his hand. And that's when he told me if I wanted to live, I had to, do what he said. I was so scared. And you just think, oh my God, I'm going to die, I'm going to die.
The man held a knife to Dawn's throat, took her into a wooded area and raped her. After the attack, he issued a chilling threat.
He said, I'm going to let you go, but if you do tell anyone or you do mention what's happened, I will come and kill you. I know where you live, I will come and get you. His last words to me is, I've ruined your life now, haven't I? And I just said, yes, you have.
Police never traced the attacker. More than 3 decades have now passed, and Dawn has struggled to get over her ordeal.
I've got wonderful children, wonderful grandchildren, but nothing can replace that hole that I've got from when I was a young child. I didn't go back to school, so I never really had much I didn't have any contact with my best friends, and I felt like, I was a prisoner really, but my parents were doing the best they could to protect me. I kept thinking he was going to come back and get me. Until I know he's either dead or caught, I'll never, ever be able to move on, and I will never feel safe. It still affects me, and it just never go away. Just never go away.
Just heartbreaking. And that attack is still having an impact on Dawn's life, even today. Well, I'm joined now by Detective Inspector Neil Phillips from Dorset Police's Major Crime Investigation Team. It's been 35 years since this happened, but you are still determined to find this man.
Yes, we've been working with Dawn for many, many years to try and solve this case and find the person responsible, and we'll never give up.
So, Neil, what do we know about her attacker?
In 1982, Dawn described her attacker as a white male, aged 25 to 30 years of age. He was around 5'6" tall and described as a medium build. He had fair, straight hair, which was parted over to the right. He had a blonde, bristly beard and described as a very thin moustache. He had gold-rimmed glasses, which were square in shape. He wore a brown or black jacket, which had a turned-down collar and a red tartanish inside, dark trousers and dark lace-up shoes.
Neil, talk us through exactly where this attack happened.
Dawn had been walking home with her friend, and she'd walked down St Brelades Avenue towards her home address through a common area. As she'd walked through that area, a man had walked towards her and started asking her about times for buses. Dawn had tried to be helpful, but at that point the man pulled a knife on her and took her further into a wooded area where he sexually assaulted her at knife point.
It's just awful. Now, this man would be a pensioner now, so what information are you appealing to the public for?
Yes, this man would be around 65 or 70 years of age now. We do have a full DNA profile of him, and he can be easily identified. Someone out there may know who he is or may suspect who he is. Please put forward a name in confidence, because we can easily eliminate anyone not responsible. And very quickly, just give us another reminder of who you're looking for, that description. He's a white male, he's aged 25 to 30, he's 5'6" tall, he's of medium build. All right, thank you very much, Neil. If you have any information, our phone lines are still down, but you can email us or call 101. And it's worth remembering, if you're a victim of any crime, you can call victim support on 0808 1689 111. Rav.
For more than a century, police have detected crimes based on fingerprints left at the scene. But what you may not realise is that shoe prints are just as unique. Now, a very clever device is using that information to link criminals with crime scenes. Temporary Detective Chief Inspector Julie Henderson from the Met Police is here to tell us more. And you've brought along your invention, Julie, the Tread Finder shoe scanner. So why did you decide to develop this?
So it really came about because we often, we use digital systems for fingerprints, and I thought, well, surely we should be able to do this for footwear as well. So that's where it came from. Because
footwear was quite behind the fingerprints, wasn't it? Because in the old days, or even now, you would have to take a ink print onto paper of someone's shoe if they're in custody. But then, of course, you'd have to post that off, and it would take several days for that to come back, by which time the offender could be home on bail, getting up to no good.
That's right. So it's a paper-based method. It's very archaic, and often the shoes are long gone before we've got any intelligence.
OK, so clearly you thought there must be a quicker way. So how did you go about designing this?
So I searched the marketplace and found one scanner, the only one of its type around that does this type of work, and I got a scanner given to me for free to run a trial. It wasn't what you see here today, it was a smaller prototype, and I needed to get a stand built really to meet health and safety requirements.
Now, with a limited budget or no budget, how did you get the stand built?
So I had no budget, so I asked a local police officer who was also quite handy to build me a stand which was safe.
Which he did, which is brilliant. Now, you're going to let me have a go.
Yep.
So what do I need to do?
If you just stand on the scanner with your feet on the stickers and then just walk straight across as you...
Just across the middle bit?
Straight across the middle bit.
So there's one, and then I'll go
Same
straight
again
back and give you the other foot. You ready?
Go ahead.
OK, so straight over. As simple as that.
Yep.
OK, so we got on the screen here, this is your computer.
Yep.
So have you got my images straight away? Yes,
straight
you have.
Away,
that is so quick. And now what would you do with that information?
So I saved the footwear, and as soon as I click save, anybody anywhere in the country can see this information so that it can be used by any investigator or forensic scientist.
So literally seconds, and you can send that off and search against the database.
Yes.
And how long would it take for you to get that result back?
So I've just done it right now behind you.
Oh, right, OK.
The results have appeared. Your shoes are not on the database, you'll be glad to hear.
I am very glad to hear that they're not on the database. And how many have you got on at the moment? How many shoes are on there?
On the national database, we've got about 45,000 different types of soil patterns.
And it's growing all the time. And that result literally would come back, I mean, in that case, seconds.
Yes.
So much better than the old system. And you're trialling it at the moment?
Yeah, so we've gone live in Colindale, Heathrow and Hounslows next week.
And just to prove that it does work, you've got a lovely success story about an aggravated burglary, obviously a very serious offence. What happened there?
Yeah, so that was a vulnerable victim, wheelchair bound, who was assaulted and robbed in his own home. 3 suspects all blamed each other in interview. The footwear was able to place each one in each room, and so really was compelling evidence.
Absolutely fantastic. Bang to rights. Julie, it's a brilliant system. Thank you so much for joining us, and let's hope the Tread Finder trips up lots more criminals in future.
Rav, we're back at Nauru, the National Ambulance Resilience Unit, and I'm on board a crash train taking part in a rescue exercise. The paramedics have been told that as well as injured passengers, the train is carrying chemicals which have leaked. Parsab Khan from Nauru is here again. So when the paramedics are first coming in, as they are now, what do they do?
So first and foremost, because the suits are quite intimidating to patients, they'll call out, shout ambulance service, so the patients are aware who's coming in to help them. Once they've basically called out, they'll see the response of the patients. They'll also then look at each individual patient, looking at if they're breathing, if there's any bleeding, see how they're responsive. Once they know what that is, then they can actually start to prioritise the patients.
How dangerous is this situation?
So in these suits, it can be quite dangerous. Simply, it's working in any road, any traffic accident, there's the risk of jagged edges, glass, slips, trips. But in this scenario, because there's chemicals involved as well, it's more dangerous because they could be exposed to them if their suits are torn by any of the jagged edges. So they have to be extra spatially aware.
Also the heat as well.
Yeah,
it's hot in
it does get very, very hot in the suits. Once they've been working on a day like this, it can get quite difficult.
So they are treating a casualty at the moment. What are they doing?
So at the moment, with this patient, we're saying they've basically been bleeding as a result of the accident, but they've also, because they've been exposed to the chemicals, they're having difficulty breathing. So what they'll aim to do is stem the bleeding by applying a tourniquet or a bandage, and then what they'll do is offer some oxygen, administer some oxygen to help with the breathing, and then look to get them off of the train as soon as they can.
OK, so we are coming off the train now, and another casualty has been stretchered off. Time is really critical here, isn't it, if this was a real emergency?
Yeah, absolutely. Time is always important in any trauma, but when you add chemicals as well, what they aim to do, or what all responders aim to do, is get them away from the hazard. The sooner they can get them into fresh air, they can start treating them and maybe carry out some more detailed observations. The important thing is also to get them out with the clothes if the clothes have been contaminated with anything. So what they'd look to do is treat baseline observations, do the important life-saving interventions, get them out of any contaminated clothing, and then away, a rapid transfer to hospital.
A rapid transfer to hospital from here?
From here, yeah. Like I said, depending on whether they have been contaminated or not, it depends on whether how they're treated on scene before they're moved
Another
away.
successful rescue thanks to these paramedics. Rav.
Thanks, Tina. I understand the phone lines are working again, so you can use them. Please do get in touch if you can help. Just give you a quick update now, and you may remember wanted face Julie Rosen. We featured her on Monday, the 50-year-old jailed for 2 years for theft but failed to stick to the conditions of her release and wanted back inside. Well, officers say that you've given them lots of information about where she may be, and they're currently following up some very strong leads. So thank you for getting in touch with all of our cases. Tina, where are you going to be tomorrow?
Well, Rav, I will be in Bristol going out on the water with Avon and Somerset's underwater search team. Now, in a city famous for its highly prized graffiti art, we'll be seeing the fight back against the not-so-creative tagging, in other words, vandalism, which is defacing many of Bristol's streets and buildings. I better dig out my scrubbing brush, Rav. I'll see you then.
Thanks, Tina. For more details about the crimes on today's programme, go to our website. Before we go, here's another look at this morning's Wanted Faces. If any of them look familiar, pick up the phone and tell us where they are. We'll be back tomorrow morning just after breakfast. Until then, do take care. Bye-bye.